The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor as her hand struck my face. "You're pathetic," she hissed, not knowing that the simple dress I wore cost more than her car. But I wasn't about to reveal who I really was. Not yet. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden identity and sweet revenge, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now let me tell you what happened that night. My name is Kaylee, and 2 years ago, I married the love of my life. Most people would think that's a pretty normal thing to say, except for one small detail. My husband happens to be Nathan Wellington, one of the wealthiest men in the country. You've probably seen his name in Forbes or watched him on business news channels. But here's the thing nobody knows. I chose to keep living like the simple woman I've always been. When Nathan and I got married, we had a small private ceremony with just our closest family. No media, no publicity, no announcement to the world. I kept my maiden name professionally, and we agreed that I could live my life however I wanted. While Nathan runs his empire, I volunteer at local charities and live quietly in our smaller home. Yes, we have several, but I prefer the cozy one that feels like home, not a museum. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Lucy Chen, my college roommate, was finally getting married. I hadn't seen her in almost 3 years, and I was genuinely excited. The invitation was elegant, printed on thick cream paper with gold lettering. The venue was one of those upscale hotels downtown that I knew cost a fortune to book. As I held the invitation, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. How do you reconnect with old friends when your life has changed so dramatically? Do I tell them I'm married to Nathan Wellington? Do I show up in designer clothes and expensive jewelry? Or do I just be myself? The same Kaylee they knew in college who wore thrift store finds and was happy with simple pleasures. I decided on the latter. I wanted to see if these friendships were real, if people would accept me for who I am, not what I have. So I planned to attend as just Kaylee. No mention of my married name, no designer outfits, no luxury car. Just me. Nathan found me that morning standing in my closet looking at my old clothes. "You're really going to do this?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I leaned into his warmth, feeling the familiar comfort of his presence. "I need to know if they're real friends," I told him. "If they can accept me as I am." He kissed the top of my head. "You know I think you're crazy, right? But I also think you're the strongest person I know." He paused, then added, "Just promise me you'll call if you need anything." "Anything at all." I promised, though I had no idea how much I'd need that promise later. The day of the wedding, I chose a simple navy blue dress I'd bought years ago from a department store. It was pretty, but nothing special. I paired it with modest heels and the small pearl earrings my mother had given me before she passed away. Looking in the mirror, I saw the old me, the woman Nathan fell in love with before he knew about the money, before the world changed around us. I drove to the venue in my old Honda Civic, the one I'd kept despite Nathan's gentle suggestions that I might want something newer. The valet looked surprised when I handed him the keys, especially when he saw the Maseratis and Mercedes lined up in the lot. The hotel ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and every table was adorned with white roses and gold accents. I could see that Lucy's family had spared no expense. Guests were already mingling, and I felt a pang of nervousness as I noticed how elegantly everyone was dressed. Designer gowns, expensive jewelry, and that unmistakable air of wealth that I'd learned to recognize. I found my assigned table and introduced myself to the other guests. Most were polite but distant, the kind of polite that people use when they're sizing you up. That's when I met Brenda Morrison. Brenda was probably in her early 40s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dress that screamed expensive. Her jewelry was the kind you see in magazines, diamond earrings that caught the light, and a necklace that probably cost more than most people's cars. She looked me up and down with the practiced eye of someone who judges people by their appearance. "I'm Brenda," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Lucy's cousin. And you are?" "Kaylee," I replied, shaking her hand. "Lucy and I were roommates in college." "Oh, how nice," she said, though her tone suggested it wasn't nice at all. And what do you do now? This was always the tricky question. Technically, I didn't need to work, but I spent most of my time volunteering at a local women's shelter and helping with literacy programs. I do volunteer work mostly, I said honestly. Brenda's eyebrows rose. Volunteer work? How charitable of you. That must be nice, having the luxury of not needing a real job. I felt my cheeks flush. It's fulfilling work. I help women who are trying to get back on their feet. Of course you do, she said with a condescending smile. Well, we can't all marry rich, can we? I didn't correct her assumption. Instead, I excused myself to find Lucy and congratulate her. Lucy looked radiant in her wedding dress, and when she saw me, her face lit up with genuine joy. Kaylee, I'm so glad you came. She hugged me tightly. You look exactly the same as college. I love that about you. You never change. We chatted for a few minutes about old times, and I felt the warmth of real friendship. This was why I came, for moments like these. But our conversation was cut short when the coordinator whisked Lucy away for photos. I returned to my table where Brenda was holding court with the other guests. She was in the middle of a story about her recent trip to Paris, name-dropping expensive restaurants and luxury hotels. When she saw me sit down, she paused. Kaylee, where did you say you bought that dress? It's so practical. The way she said practical made it sound like a disease. I've had it for a while, I said simply. I can tell, she replied with a laugh that wasn't quite friendly. I just bought this little number in Milan. The designer is absolutely divine. Of course, not everyone can afford to shop internationally. I sipped my water and stayed quiet. I'd learned that sometimes the best response is no response at all. But Brenda wasn't finished. Throughout dinner, she made little comments. About my shoes, so sensible. My purse, how quaint. And my hair, I know an amazing stylist if you're interested. Each comment was delivered with a sweet smile, but the venom underneath was clear. The other guests at our table shifted uncomfortably. I could see they were embarrassed by Brenda's behavior, but no one said anything. I understood. Confronting someone like Brenda at a wedding would just cause more drama. As the evening progressed, Brenda's comments became more direct. She started asking invasive questions about my finances, my living situation, my family background. When I mentioned that my parents had passed away, she made a show of sympathy before immediately asking if they'd left me anything. It must be so hard, she said, being all alone in the world with no family money to fall back on. I can't imagine having to struggle like that. I felt something inside me crack. My parents had been wonderful people. My father was a teacher, my mother a nurse. They'd given me everything that mattered, love, values, and the strength to stand on my own. They'd worked hard their entire lives and had been proud of the woman I'd become. My parents gave me everything I needed, I said quietly. They taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account. Brenda laughed, a harsh sound that carried across the table. Oh, how sweet, how perfectly naive. Let me tell you something, honey. In the real world, money absolutely matters. It's easy to pretend it doesn't when you're living some fantasy about virtue and kindness, but the truth is, people like you will always be looking up at people like me. I felt my hands tremble slightly. I'd dealt with people like Brenda before, but something about her cruelty toward my parents' memory was pushing me toward a breaking point. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. I'm not looking up at anyone. I'm quite happy with my life. Are you? Brenda leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who's pretending to be something she's not. Coming to a wedding like this, trying to fit in with people who are clearly out of your league, it's honestly a little pathetic. The word hung in the air like a slap. Pathetic. I'd been called many things in my life, but never that. Never by someone who didn't know the first thing about me. I stood up slowly, my napkin falling to the floor. You don't know anything about me, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I know enough, Brenda snapped, standing as well. I know you're a sad little woman who volunteers at charity cases because you can't afford to do anything else. I know you're wearing a dress that went out of style 5 years ago and shoes that look like they came from a discount store. I know you drove here in some pathetic little car, and you're probably going home to some tiny apartment where you'll eat ramen noodles and watch reality TV. The entire table had gone silent. Other guests at nearby tables were starting to stare. I could feel the weight of their attention, the uncomfortable tension filling the air. "You're wrong," I said simply. "Am I?" Brenda's voice was rising now. "Prove it. Show me I'm wrong. Show me you're not just another charity case trying to play dress-up with the grown-ups." I felt my phone buzz in my purse. Nathan's name appeared on the screen, and I answered without thinking. "Hey, sweetheart." His warm voice filled my ear. "How's the wedding? Are you ready for me to pick you up?" I glanced at Brenda, who was watching me with a smirk. "Actually, yes. I think I'm ready to come home." "Perfect. I'm about 15 minutes away. I brought the car around just in case. See you soon, Mrs. Wellington." I hung up, and Brenda burst into laughter. "Mrs. Wellington? Really? That's your big story? You're married to some imaginary rich guy named Wellington? That's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard." I sat back down, folding my hands in my lap. "You'll see," I said quietly. "Oh, I can't wait," Brenda said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is your imaginary husband going to sweep you away in his imaginary limousine?" I didn't answer. I just waited. 15 minutes later, I saw the commotion near the entrance. Hotel staff were suddenly very busy, and there seemed to be some kind of excitement in the lobby. Then I saw him, Nathan, walking through the ballroom doors with the quiet confidence that had first attracted me to him. He wasn't alone. His usual security detail flanked him, and I could see the hotel manager practically bowing as he escorted them to my table. The entire ballroom had gone quiet, and I could hear whispers starting to ripple through the crowd. "Is that Nathan Wellington? What's he doing here? Oh my God, that's really him." Nathan's eyes found mine across the room, and his face broke into the gentle smile that was reserved just for me. He walked directly to our table, ignoring the stares and whispers. "Hello, beautiful," he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. "I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible." I looked at Brenda, whose face had gone completely white. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish, but no sound was coming out. "Nathan," I said, standing to take his offered arm, "I'd like you to meet Brenda. She's been keeping me company this evening." Nathan turned to Brenda with the polite smile he used for business acquaintances. "Brenda, I hope you've been taking good care of my wife." The word wife seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Brenda's eyes were wide with shock, and I could see her mind racing, trying to process what was happening. "Your wife?" she managed to whisper. "For 2 wonderful years," Nathan said, his arm tightening around my waist. "Though she insists on keeping her maiden name professionally. Independent woman, my Kaylee." I could see other guests pulling out their phones, probably Googling Nathan's name to confirm what they were seeing. The whispers were getting louder now, and I spotted Lucy across the room, staring at us with complete amazement. I didn't know," Brenda stammered. "I mean, she never said. She was dressed so like herself," Nathan finished, his voice cooling slightly. "That's one of the things I love most about her. She's never been impressed by money or status. She married me despite my wealth, not because of it." Brenda's face was now red with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, I had no idea. If I had known—" "That's exactly the point," I said gently. "You didn't know. You judged me based on my clothes, my car, my appearance. You decided who I was worth treating with respect based on what you thought I could afford." Nathan looked around the table, his eyes taking in the other guests who had witnessed Brenda's behavior. "I hope everyone enjoyed the evening. Kaylee, are you ready to go home?" I nodded, then turned back to Brenda. "I want you to know something," I said quietly. "Even if I had been exactly who you thought I was, a woman struggling to make ends meet, wearing an old dress and driving an old car, I still would have deserved to be treated with basic human kindness. Wealth doesn't determine worth, and how you treat people when you think they can't help you says everything about your character." Brenda's eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't sure if they were from shame or frustration. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know you are," I said, "but you're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry for how you treated someone who turned out to be important. That's not the same thing." Nathan guided me away from the table, but not before I caught Lucy's eye. She was making her way over to us, and when she reached us, she hugged me tightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because I wanted to know if you'd still be my friend," I said honestly, "just plain old Kaylee from college." Lucy pulled back, tears in her eyes. "You'll always be my friend. Rich or poor, famous or unknown. That's what real friendship means." Nathan shook Lucy's hand and congratulated her on her wedding. As we prepared to leave, I could see the other guests watching us with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. Some were probably thinking about their own behavior during the evening, wondering if they'd been kind enough to the woman in the simple dress. As we walked toward the exit, Nathan leaned down to whisper in my ear, "You handled that beautifully. I'm proud of you." I almost lost my temper, I admitted. "But you didn't. You stayed true to yourself, and you taught that woman a lesson she'll never forget." We reached the lobby, where Nathan's car was waiting. As the driver held the door open, I looked back at the ballroom one last time. Through the windows, I could see Brenda still sitting at our table, staring down at her hands while other guests whispered around her. The drive home was quiet, and I found myself thinking about the evening. I wasn't proud of the way it had ended, but I was grateful for the lesson it had taught me. I'd gone to that wedding hoping to reconnect with old friends while hiding my new reality. Instead, I'd learned something more valuable, that true friendship isn't about status or wealth, and that how we treat others when we think no one important is watching reveals who we really are. "Do you regret it?" Nathan asked as we pulled into our driveway. "Going as just yourself?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said finally. "I learned something important tonight. Lucy's friendship is real. She was happy to see me before she knew about you, and she's still my friend after. That's what matters." "And Brenda?" I sighed. "Brenda learned something too, I think. Maybe not the lesson I wanted to teach her, but something. Maybe next time she'll think twice before judging someone by their appearance." Nathan helped me out of the car, and we walked to our front door together. As I kicked off my modest heels and hung up my simple dress, I realized that I wouldn't change anything about the evening. Yes, it had been uncomfortable and hurtful at times, but it had also been authentic. I'd been myself, completely and honestly, and that had been enough. The next morning, I woke up to find several missed calls and text messages. Lucy had called to thank me for coming and to apologize for Brenda's behavior. She also mentioned that Brenda had left the reception early, looking quite shaken. There was also a message from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw it was from Brenda herself. "Kaylee, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to reach out. I've been thinking about what you said all night, and you're right. I'm sorry for how I treated you, and I'm even more sorry that it took finding out who you're married to for me to realize how wrong I was. I hope you can forgive me someday. You're a better person than I am." I showed the message to Nathan over breakfast. He read it thoughtfully, then looked at me. "What will you do?" "I'll forgive her," I said without hesitation, not because she deserves it, but because holding on to anger would change who I am. And I like who I am. Nathan smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. "That's my girl, the woman who married me despite my billions, not because of them." As I sat there in our kitchen, wearing my comfortable pajamas and drinking coffee from my favorite mug, I realized that this was exactly where I belonged. Not in a ballroom wearing designer clothes, not trying to impress people with my husband's wealth, but right here, being exactly who I am. The woman who was called pathetic had turned out to be anything but. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply be yourself, no matter what others might think. This story reminds us that we never truly know someone's story. What would you have done in Kaylee's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Remember, kindness costs nothing but means everything. Until next time, keep being amazing.